The Secretary of the Senate will call the Senate roll.
Senator Buck. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Cruz Crawford. Senator Daley. Senator Doñate. Senator Dondera Loop. Senator Ellison. Senator Flores. Senator Hansen. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Rogish. Senator Scheibel. Senator Steinbeck. Senator Stone. Senator Taylor. Senator Titus.
The Chief Clerk of the Assembly will call the Assembly roll.
Assembly members Anderson, Backus, Brown May, Carter, Cole, Considine, Dahlia, DeLong, Dickman, De Silva, Edgeworth, Flanagan, Gallant, Gonzalez, Goulding, Gray, Gurr, Hafen, Hanson, Hardy, Hibbets, Hunt, Jackson, Howdigi, Karras, Kasama, Koenig, LaRue Hatch, Marzola, Miller, Monroe Moreno, Moore, Mosca, Nadeem, Wynn, O'Neill, Orentlicker, Roth, Torres Fawcett, Watts, Urick, Speaker Yeager.
Here. I will now appoint a committee of two consisting of Senator Doñate and Assemblymember Monroe Moreno to wait upon United States Representative Stephen Horsford and escort him into the Assembly chamber. The committee will be about its business. And this would be a good time to silence your phones if you have not already done that, please. The appointed committee will escort Representative Horsford to the Chief Clerk's rostrum. Everyone please rise. Representative Horsford, we welcome you and we look forward to your message.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to be back in Carson City and to see so many familiar faces. It's my honor to address this 83rd legislative session of the Nevada State Legislature. Before I begin, I want to thank Speaker Yeager, Senate Majority Leader Cannizzaro, Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony for the opportunity, as well as Attorney General Aaron Ford, who is working hard to protect our constitutional rights for all Nevadans, as well as our Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, and the Nevada Supreme Court Justices who are here, and to all of you for taking the time this evening. Now look, I spent 8 years in serving in these halls. I know exactly how excited lawmakers are to pause your very important work to hear from some federal elected officials. You can be polite, but you can't fool me. So I'll jump right in, but not before sending my thoughts to Senator Dina Neal and her family. I was able to visit with her and her family this morning before coming to Carson City. I'm wishing her a strong and full recovery, and I'm grateful to the medical professionals who made sure that her surgery overnight was a success. Tonight, I'm not here to list accomplishments. I'm here with a warning for our state and a path forward that puts every Nevadan first. I'm going to draw on the lessons that I learned from my grandmother, Grace Dorothy. This April is 25 years since her passing, but I feel her presence now more than ever. Grace Dorothy had a severe stroke when I was just 3 weeks old. She fell into a coma, and when she emerged months later, the left side of her body was completely paralyzed. For my entire life, the grandmother that I knew and cared for, and who cared deeply for me, couldn't walk by my side, couldn't walk at all, couldn't hug me with her left arm. She could barely speak. When she wanted to say something to me, good morning, or it's too cold in here, can you turn on the heat, or simply, I love you, she had to write the words out with her finger. While she could speak, the pain sometimes was just too difficult. Complications from the stroke forced my grandmother to live in a nursing home for 27 years until she passed away in 2000. My visits to her were at her bedside in nursing homes as I grew up from child to adult. From that experience, I learned what quality care looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like. I know what bed sores are, whether a patient is cared for properly, and whether a facility is clean or not. My grandmother didn't have private insurance, so when they moved her from Southern Nevada Memorial, now UMC, they placed her in a convalescent home on Maryland Parkway in Las Vegas. After that, the moves were to wherever beds were available. In the 80s, she was even moved 100 miles out of Nevada to St. George, Utah, because of state budget cuts. I didn't understand it at the time, but I later learned that the only reason that she had the care that she did was thanks to government support, thanks to Medicaid. When there were cutbacks or reductions to the program, it affected her health. It determined the number of nurses that cared for her and the quality of care that she received. It caused tremendous stress and guilt for my mother. I share all of this for one simple reason. Right now, there are some 811,000 Grace Dorothys in Nevada. 811,000 people in our state who depend on Medicaid. And right now, they're counting on their elected officials to have the courage to keep their coverage safe. Now look, I get it. Government spending needs to come down, but it matters how we do it. I'm one of only 2 Democrats in Congress on the DOGE caucus because I believe that we can root out waste, fraud, and abuse. I believe that we should work together to make government work for our constituents. But I'm also on the caucus because I want Nevada to have a say whenever talks come up about cutting anything, whether it's Medicare or nutrition assistance, privatizing the VA, or changing the eligibility for Social Security. What's the old phrase? If you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. So I'm not about to leave Nevadans on the menu, and I have the first-hand experience to back that up. In 2011, our state faced one of the worst budget challenges in our history. To right our ship, the governor at that time proposed across-the-board cuts to health and human services, mental health services, and Medicaid, including nursing homes. I remember one of the budget hearings was about cutting diapers for seniors and other essential services. Diapers. I was the Senate Majority Leader at the time, and I knew we couldn't cut the state budget on the backs of the most vulnerable people in our state. We had to work together to do better, and we did. We passed a bipartisan alternative state budget, overriding the governor's veto at the time. It didn't eliminate all of the proposed cuts, but we kept the fabric of our state together without denying seniors on Medicaid dignified care, including those hotly contested diapers. So look, Nevada has a history of bipartisan work when it comes to protecting and expanding access to Medicaid. But right now, that's under real threat from the current House Republican budget proposal in Washington. The proposal adds $4.5 trillion to the deficit to do what? To pay for corporate tax cuts. And to cover that cost, they want to slash federal funding for Medicaid, nutrition assistance programs, the VA, and other critical services. These cuts have nothing to do with bringing down the costs that President Trump promised he would address. Eggs won't get cheaper, gas won't flow faster, and housing won't become more affordable. Make no mistake, these cuts are purely to fund tax cuts for big corporations, tech tycoons, and billionaires. And here's why this is a problem that we have to take on together. If the proposal passes, it will strip Nevada of the 90% federal funding match for Medicaid created by the Affordable Care Act. It will cost our state at least $700 million a year over the next decade. We can't afford the capital cost. We can't even afford the human toll that would cost. Remember, 811,000 Grace Dorothys are counting on us in Nevada. Nearly 40% of all Nevada children, some 274,000 children rely on Medicaid. 42% of moms giving birth and their newborn babies rely on Medicaid. That's more than 13,200 births in 2023 alone. More than 35% of working age adults with disabilities, nearly 65,000 people in Nevada, rely on Medicaid. 60% of the people living in nursing homes, just like my grandmother, rely on Medicaid. A recent study found that as many as 320,000 Nevadans, more than 40% of all enrollees in our state, would lose coverage if the congressional Republican budget proposal gets enacted. So the choices leaders like us make affect real people. So it's important that we center the stories of those that we represent. Those who are closest to the pain should be the center of shaping the policy. That's the only way that the changes that we all seek can actually take hold and get implemented. That's why I'm listening and engaging my constituents from across the district to share what these cuts would mean to them. Nurses and care coordinators in Pahrump at Nevada Health Center shared with me just yesterday that they have no birth center in their community and limited OBGYN services. At Hope Christian Center in North Las Vegas, another federally qualified health center who's meeting the needs of thousands of patients who have diabetes and high blood pressure, without proper coverage, these costs will continue to rise because you're not addressing the problem if you just shift the burden to the states and don't have any way to fund it. Tribal leaders at Walker River Paiute are struggling to get care from Indian services and depend on the Medicaid services for their tribal members. These are the people who will be affected, and so many more like them, if the House Republican budget passes and these cuts take effect. And it all comes down to one simple word: priorities. The hospital building that houses the Walker River Paiute tribe is nearly 100 years old. It has structural issues from a recent earthquake that Indian Health Services must address. We should be protecting the Affordable Care Act. Instead, President Trump and Elon Musk are focused on cutting the care that tribal leaders depend on. Those aren't my values, and they're not Nevadan values either. So what's the alternative? Like we showed here in Nevada, a group of bipartisan members can lead the way. It only takes three Republicans to reject this chaotic and cruel approach and join in a bipartisan coalition to keep the fabric of our country together. 3. And it can be done. Nevada was the first state with a Republican governor, then Governor Brian Sandoval, to implement Medicaid expansion after the Affordable Care Act passed. It reduced the uninsured rate in Nevada by a third. 563,000 children who were previously uninsured suddenly had coverage. So as I return to Washington next week, I'll be thinking about the hundreds of thousands of Nevadans who could see their lives turned upside down by the Republican budget. I understand that the world's moving fast right now. Horrific cuts to the federal workforce, the largest data breach in U.S. history taking place at this administration's direction. Federal funding freezes undermining nonprofits and the people that they serve. Tariff disputes threatening to raise prices across the board. But above all else, the Medicaid cuts will hit Nevada, and Nevadans the hardest. I hear from hundreds of constituents calling and messaging my office every week. I'll bring their voices, their concerns, and yes, their stories with me to Capitol Hill. I know who I'm fighting for, and I know why I'm fighting for them. Grace Dorothy, my grandmother, is no longer here with me to fight for her, but countless others are. They're receiving care in nursing homes, they're seeking health services at community health centers, they're pregnant women in need of maternity care, and newborn babies just beginning their start in this world. They are all of us, regardless of party, or whether they belong to a party at all. I'm proud to fight for them, and I'm proud to have each one of you as colleagues in this work. None of you would run for office or spend 120 days in this sometimes maddening process if you didn't fundamentally believe that you could improve the lives of your constituents. The issues before you are serious, and your leadership is needed more now than ever. But we are battle-born and battle-tested. We will look back on this moment in history, and I have no doubt it will be one that dictates the future of our state. If we stand united and center the lives of Nevadans, we may be able to avoid some of the worst budget challenges in our history. But if we fall to partisan politics, you may see yourselves in special session after special session talking about things like diapers for seniors and prenatal care for mothers. I'm ready to fight, and I hope that you'll join me. Thank you very much for allowing me to be with you. I look forward to the work that we have to do together in the days, months, and years to come. God bless you, and God bless the people of the state of Nevada, our troops, and the United States of America.
Senator Cruz Crawford.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Senate and Assembly in joint session extend a vote of thanks to Representative Horsford and for his timely, able, and constructive message.
Assemblymember Flanagan.
I second the motion.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The appointed committee will escort Representative Horsford to the bar of the Assembly. Assemblymember Mosca.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the joint session of the Senate and Assembly be dissolved.
Senator Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second that motion.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. I declare the joint session dissolved. The Assembly will come back to order. Assemblymember Howdegui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly stand adjourned until Thursday, February 20th at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.